Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 2 of my Butterfly and Pastel series. And in this video we're going to go ahead and add the final details to the butterfly and add a few more details to the flower and make it look a little bit more detailed. So here I'm working a little bit more on the butterfly, and the app that we're using is Infinite Painter for Android, and you can follow along traditionally with your own pastels. And I'm just kind of working on the butterfly's body and working on the pattern and the design and the wings, just trying to get kind of a little bit more refined on the wings and trying to get some of that look, that black look that they have on the edges. And again, you don't have to use completely black. You can use some browns and some really dark browns and just some dark blues to give it kind of a depth to your color there. And so I'm working on the edges of the wings, and I'm adding a little bit of brown for shading because I can see in the photograph that I have that it has some brown look to it. So I'm adding little brown lines there and just kind of smudging them, but I'm also leaving the lines there, and that just kind of gives it a more textured look. And also I like that it kind of shows that it's a pastel look. It kind of shows the texture of the pastel, and I like that it does that. I want kind of a rough look for this painting. In part 1 I talked about how Harley Brown will add details to his paintings, this famous pastel artist, and he will add details to certain parts of his painting and leave a lot of the painting indistinct and with just rough strokes around the edges. And I really like that vignette look. It gives it a really neat style. And so then I'm just kind of working on adding a little more brown to the butterfly wings, trying to get a little bit more color into the wings and give it a more of a dimensional look instead of it just being kind of flat. And so I'm adding a little bit more of a darker color, a little bit of a darker black color next to the body as well. That gives it kind of a little bit more dimension and makes the body look rounded. And then I'm working on the swallowtail of the butterfly there, and just kind of refining that look and refining the edges. And if you're following along traditionally, you would use probably a pastel pencil, and because that just kind of helps you get more detail on the pastel paintings. And then here I'm saving it. Always save it, because you never know when the program could crash or any kind of thing. You could lose electricity, etc. And then here I'm just working a little bit more on the flowers. Now I don't want the flowers to be really finely detailed. I just want to give a kind of an indication of some light shining on the flowers, and that it's sort of an impressionistic look of flowers. And so I'm adding some lighter pinks and some darker greens, just to give that a little bit of depth there, and to show that it's flower stems right there, and adding a little bit of a dot of yellow to the center of the flowers. And then I'm just kind of smudging that out, just leaving it sort of rough and smudgy looking, because again we want mostly the center of attention to be on the butterfly. And here I'm just working a little bit more on the design of the wings, trying to get the wings a little bit more refined looking and adding the darker color to it. You can add a darker brown and the darker black looking color. And if you're following along traditionally, you would use your black pastel, but then you can go over it again with, say, a dark blue or a dark brown to just give it a little more color and a little more depth. And in fact, when you're using pastels, your black pastel can be used a lot to make a darker color, but it won't come out completely black because it will blend in with your different colors. So you get like a darker blue or purple. And then here I'm adding a little bit of some purple to the wings, around the body, just kind of giving it sort of a shadowed look there and a three-dimensional look to the wings to add a little bit of the purple and then smudge it in. I'm also doing that to the flower, just to kind of give it a little bit of some depth. We still don't want it real detail, but I just want to give it kind of a little indication, a little impression of depth there. And then here I want to go ahead and add a little bit more to the butterfly, just refine it a little bit on the body, kind of get that shape a little bit better, get that textured, segmented look that a butterfly has on their body. And just kind of working and adding a little bit of a brighter yellow instead of such a pale color there. And I'm working again on the design, adding back a little bit of some lighter color there. And that's the nice thing about pastels, is that you can layer them as well and add more color back into your painting and layer it over dark colors as well. You can also just erase it with an eraser if you think you've got things too dark. That's the beauty of pastel as well. And you have to make sure that you have a fairly good paper. You can work on watercolor paper or sandpaper pastel that holds a lot of layers. There's all kinds of different types of pastel paper. And then here I just went ahead and signed it and left the edges looking really rough, and just the butterfly again is the center of the attention because it's more refined than the rest of the painting. And so that gives it that really neat vignette effect. So this is the end of my Butterfly and Pastel series. And if you want to see some more like this, then hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.